Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, celebrity interviews, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
Welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. But for our radio audience here in Mississippi at WYAD 94.1 FM and WYADonline.com, we're glad that you all could be with us. Also, tuning in to our friends at iHeartRadio and Amazon Music Podcast, we're glad you all could be with us as well. If you've ever wondered if one person can make a difference or that you are someone who matters and your story matters, I think our next guest will definitely be able to help you to see only your own worth, but also the importance of telling your story as well. We're excited to welcome Nora Neus to our program today. She, along with Muhammad Najem, have written a great new book. It's called Muhammad Najem, War Reporter, How One Boy Put the Spotlight on Syria. We're going to talk to Nora not only about how she was able to find out about Muhammad, but also what it was like for her to help share his story and what she hopes it's able to do for you regardless of your age. Nora, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your interest.
Nora, this book is really, I think, it's great for all ages. I know it is kind of intended for a younger audience, but what has it been like for you to see the way that people already are responding to it?
It's been really incredible for people to see the reality of what it was like to live in Syria during the conflict, which unfortunately still continues today. And I think a big part of that is not only the horror of living in bombings and in wartime, but also a lot of the joy and a lot of the fun family moments and light jokes and pranks between the family. And this is still a community that is vibrant, even though it's during wartime. So that's been something really exciting for people to be able to see.
Yeah. This is a book that does not in any way try to sugarcoat, Nora, the harsh realities of war, of conflict, and the casualties of it. I mean, we, through Muhammad, were able to see, of course, what it's like to not only deal with destruction, but also death. What was that like for you to be able to be a part of that, to be able to show that, just like, people may think about, what happens when it comes to war, but to actually be able to tell this story? What was it like for you to be a part of actually sharing his reality?
So often in wartime, it's easy to get distracted by statistics that, X number of people have died in this conflict. And you forget that every single one of those people has a network of family and friends and community that is impacted by that death. And so by telling the story through Muhammad's perspective, it really does focus on the impact of every single one of those deaths and injuries and traumatic experiences. And that has been a really meaningful part of this story, especially, like you mentioned, for younger audiences, that this is not just some faraway conflict that, that doesn't have a human aspect to it, but these are people like you and I who are really going through this.
Yeah, and I love the fact that we're able to see this as well in the power of documentation, where we're talking about Muhammad taking photos of individuals, or, of course, being able to share the realities. But there are also the lighter moments, being able to see family members and friends, getting engaged, right? I mean, and being able to be of assistance. So how did you first find out about Muhammad? How did it first come to you about his journey and what he had done?
I was working at CNN, I still am, but at the time that I discovered Muhammad's videos online, and I was getting my master's degree in war studies at the time, and I stumbled across videos of this kid in Syria who was showing what it was really like to live during the bombings, and one of the very first videos I saw of him, he was standing on a roof with bombs literally dropping in the background, taking a selfie video. And his voice kind of broke when he was talking. And I realized he was scared, which, of course, he was a kid. And we did a lot of work right after that to verify that he was who he said he was, that he really was in the community, and just making sure that it was all completely legit. And when we realized that it was, he had posted all these incredible videos. I got in touch with him. We did an interview. And then we ended up reporting this story for CNN.
And now, of course, the world gets to know about him. It's interesting, Nora, when the book was pitched to me, I did not remember hearing about him before reading the book. So I'm sure for a lot of audiences, this will be their introduction to Muhammad. What do you hope his strength and his courage does? Especially, I'll go back to young readers first, and then we'll get to us adults. But what do you hope it shares with them about the importance, for one, realizing what they can do to make a difference, but also the importance of telling their story?
I think so often, starting with young people, it feels like their voices don't necessarily matter, or they're told to wait until they're adults. And that is just far from the truth, both for Muhammad in Syria, but I think for any kid, and really for any person. It's a story of using the voice that you have to tell the stories about the people that matter to you. So Muhammad started off by going around and interviewing other kids, and those are the voices that really resonated then with an international audience and really helped people pay attention to what was happening in Syria. And I think that goes for adults as well. It's easy to become cynical about the world and if it's even worth trying to make a difference anymore. And I think this story really shows that it is worth it. And even if, you don't literally end the war in Syria, that was Muhammad's original goal. And there's a moment in the book where he realizes that he's not actually going to be able to end the entire war. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't worth it to improve so many people's lives and to tell their stories and to impact his own world.
Yeah. Has he? Do you think he realized the impact that he's been able to make?
He has, and I think on a lot of levels, there's smaller impacts. He showed a story about a young girl whose leg had been blown off during a bombing, and his viewers raised money to buy her a prosthetic leg, which wouldn't have happened otherwise. But then also on the larger view, when he escaped Syria and moved to Istanbul, I went to go visit them. And we were walking on the street in Istanbul, and people were stopping him on the street to thank him for his reporting. And so there are a lot of impacts, big and small.
There's that great picture that's on his Instagram, Nora, of him holding a copy of the book. And I saw that, and I thought to myself, what a thing. How surreal that must be. What was it like for you to see the book for the first time?
Oh, it was incredible. And the very first box of books that I opened on FaceTime with Muhammad, and he just started laughing, and he admitted that this whole time he wasn't really too sure it was actually going to happen, which made me laugh, because I'm like, dude, we've worked on this for the last 3 years. What did he think was going to happen? But he was like, no, I just didn't. There's something about seeing the book in person and holding it and knowing that it's his story for generations to come.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me about the book is that the idea of how our lives can change in an instant. Of course, this year there's a lot of focus on what's happening in Ukraine, the conflict there, and I think this book is so timely. What has the conversations been like for you with that, Nora, to think about, even for people who may not have known what's happening in Syria, they have, almost daily we're seeing the reports of what's happening in Ukraine. What has it been like for you to help people see the correlation of how people today are still making an impact and making a difference?
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely related. And I went to Ukraine at the beginning of the war. I was there for a few weeks in my capacity with CNN. And Muhammad was giving me advice about how to report from a war zone, which was kind of a fun, fun's the wrong word, but interesting role reversal. And so many folks in Ukraine are also yearning for their stories to be told and for their humanity to be acknowledged. And Muhammad has done a lot of good reporting and kind of shining a light on the situation in Ukraine. And just yesterday, I got a message from one of my friends in Ukraine who I got a book to through kind of a variety of intermediate steps. And he said the book really resonated with him living through the war as well, even though it's in a different place.
Yeah. I want to ask you about one of the individuals in Muhammad's life, and I'm probably going to mispronounce it. I think it was his uncle Nazar. Was it pronounced Nazar?
Oh, yeah, Uncle Nazar, yeah.
Nazar. That probably was one of the from me, and I'll talk around it so I won't spoil it for those who haven't read it, but that was probably one of the most I don't want to say sad, but I mean, I think that one of the accounts that really stuck with me after I finished the book, I guess because as we see today, there are so many people who, even when their lives are in danger, Nora, they still want to do what they can to help others. What was that like for you to hear about his uncle and the sacrifices he was willing to make?
I think we see that over and over in wartime and in these horrible situations, but also just in our daily life of brave people willing to help others at risk of their own harm. And I think it's a way that we all kind of hope that we would act in a moment of crisis. And that was one of the hardest parts for me to write and to hear about from Muhammad and his family, because it was a very valiant act and something that I think we all wish we would do. Yeah,
like I said, it really stood out to me. Just as one of those things that, because it does show the personal aspect, right, of this all. And I love what you said, Nora, and it is so true. And I'm the news director for the station here in Mississippi, and so I do the news here Monday through Friday. But the thing that I think, since I've been doing the news, is that a lot of times you hear numbers, but when you start putting names and family members with these individuals, it's like it definitely changes the whole perspective. And I think a book like this changes, as you said, changes the perspective of not just hearing about something happening over there, something that's very real for all of us, because we all know what it's like to go through loss and challenges and difficulties, but to think of what some people are able to do in spite of that definitely makes a difference. Again, everyone, Nora Neus has been our guest. The book is Muhammad Najem, War Reporter, How One Boy Put the Spotlight on Syria, co-written with Muhammad himself. A beautiful book, Nora, and definitely tell Muhammad how much I enjoyed it. And how can our audience stay connected with you all and updates on the book?
Well, you can follow both Muhammad and I on Twitter and on Instagram, where we've been posting a lot of behind-the-scenes pictures and stories, and Muhammad especially is very active.
Okay. All right. Nora, again, congratulations to the two of you, and looking forward to our next chat together.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you, and we think your audience are tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. As always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live, and let's go make today amazing. Take care.